This podcast was recorded during the 2023 writer and actor strikes. Without the labour of the writers and actors currently on strike, movies like Avatar and others covered on this show would not exist. Welcome to Sivako, the Avatar podcast. Joining me on today's a very special episode, I have it's a bit of a different episode today because we're currently during the writers and actors strike during Hollywood. So I have some special guests who are going to speak to us on a different topic. Special guests, would you like to all introduce yourselves?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to go first. My name's Lucas. I am co-host of the Broken Shovel podcast. My friends Eric and Lily join me as we talk about climate change and homesteading. Eric or Lily?
As
Yeah,
well as
I'm Eric.
sustainability.
Yes, and sustainability. Yes.
And honestly, this is a very exciting time for me. First of all, this is the most people I've ever had on my podcast in one go. So it's going to feel like a real crowded room for me.
Should I leave?
No, not at all. I like it. I'm getting to know, it's all a new experience for me. I'm learning some new things. I'm ready to be swamped with knowledge. So I guess first question is, how did you guys start up a podcast about homesteading?
Lucas.
So
Lucas, you should take this.
yeah, so I tend to be the driving force behind anything I've worked on with Lily and Eric before. I'm a bit of a whip cracker, I guess. I was a person who worked a job and all of those things until almost exactly 8 months ago,
Yep.
and I don't know. I became a full-time homesteader because I personally, and this is my personal value system, I don't find that adjusting to an unwell world is a sign of accomplishment. And I've really sort of dove into it head first. And these people, these people, my friends, Lily and Eric, decided, to come along with me on a series of journeys to help other people find that place in the world if it's that important to them as it is to me. Is that a fantastically rambling answer?
Yes.
And I'll kind of speak to how I got roped into this. So I actually am huge on sustainability. My part-time job is to work with my dad, and what we do is biological research, and ultimately we are our goal is conservation, conserving land against palm oil industry. So I am more the sustainability side. I live in New York City. The homesteading is not not here. Um, so that's kind of where I come in. And kind of, we were touching on this a little bit earlier, but I'm kind of the focused one. I kind of rein the topic in and bring us back to any points that we need and kind of focus us in. And Eric, how did you get into this?
Lucas just asked me. He knew that I kind of do a micro homestead here at my house in my free time outside of work. I've got a small flock of chickens, and Lucas said, "Hey, you want to just come talk about it and talk about sustainability and whatnot?" I was like, "Sure."
And it doesn't hurt that we all get along for the most part, I think. So
Yes.
I'd say so.
I mean, that's such a huge part of it. I feel like as long as you can get along with people while you're podcasting, you're in for the long haul for it. It's so exciting that you guys all have such interesting ways into it. So I guess a big thing is what my audience probably don't know a lot about homesteading. So what's the best way to describe it?
Well, I mean, Eric and I think we pretty much agree on this, but it's essentially um, supplying for yourself,
Hmm.
and getting away from the normal supply chain. It's about self-sufficiency and sustainability. Sorry, and it's I have a lot of sort of ideological things behind it, but really it's about taking care of yourself in a world that uh, doesn't take care of you.
And Lily as well. I remember you mentioned just a minute ago, you said about palm oil and
Yes.
about sort of that being your background is, well, fighting
Well,
against palm oil, I'm guessing. Um,
yes.
so, yeah, like, do you want to explain a little bit more on that?
Yeah. So, as you probably know, or a lot of people know, palm oil is in pretty much everything you buy. And it is a huge invasive industry in a lot of like South America, um, Australia, like warmer tropical climates. And part of what my dad and I do is study microhylid frogs, which are native to a tropical environment like this. And so, our larger project that we've been working on is really finding and saying, no, these frogs are important. This is a very important biological area. We need to conserve it and make it um, preserved land. And so part of what homesteading is to me is really avoiding those foods that have processed foods like palm oil, you know, buying from local people, and really just low impact on the environment. I think that's the best way of explaining what I do.
No, it's super clear.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think it's super interesting to sort of think of it in terms of what you're taking from the land as well, but also how much there is like involvement from big corporations that perhaps are having, well, which are having a huge impact on the environment. And if you can like get yourself out of that chain in some way.
Exactly. Like, a lot of people don't know this, but like a lot of those like organic peanut butters that you buy in grocery stores, they have palm oil in them. So like even if they say it's sustainably sourced palm oil, there's no such thing. And we've had a discussion about grocery stores quite a lot, between the three of us, and how organic is such a funny term because then they'll wrap it in plastic and put it in the grocery store, and you're like, this is defeating the purpose of
Well, you also pay to get the organic label.
hmm
That's
exactly.
That's wild. That something like even just having the fact that they'll put organic on it, but yeah, with all the wrapping, and you see it with supermarkets anywhere you go, it's the same, where there's just excess wrapping and all this kind of thing, and yeah, I guess homesteading is a good way to avoid all that in a way.
I haven't eaten anything from a grocery store for the last 6 days. Now that we're heading into harvest season, it's been either beef sourced from my neighbor or vegetables from my garden.
Yeah, so obviously it's not just fruit and veg as well. So yeah, as you mentioned, there's like meats as well. So are you all I guess the question is, are you guys any of you vegan or vegetarian, or are you all sort of yeah, working with meats as well in your diets?
All
I
pretty
I'm not.
omnivorous.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm more of an opportunist.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'd say I think I'm more what is presented and what is available to me is what I will eat in a sustainable, homegrown way, or seasonal. That's it. I think
Yeah,
it's the more
seasonal is
appropriate
very
term.
important to me and my wife.
Yeah, and I guess as well, seasonal is really related to what you're growing. So I guess my question next for you all is what kind of foods are you growing?
Well, I mean, Lily, you said you're growing air plants mostly these days.
Yeah.
You're just looking at good sources. Eric, I haven't heard an update from your garden.
I it
What's going on?
is it's it I didn't fry it, and I like to think it's looking better, but it honestly looks more of the same.
Yeah.
It's there's some tomato plants are doing well, some aren't. I actually went ahead and just pulled all the radishes yesterday because I'm done with them. They are 45 days in and we're not growing at all. So I'm like, nope, you're done. But I
Hmm.
also have carrots. I'm trying to grow cucumbers. They're actually coming back. I tried to grow zucchini. It's iffy, and pumpkins.
Right, and Sean, I don't know if you've seen the news, but we're Eric and I are located in Vermont, and we have had some very interesting effects from climate change happen here.
Hmm.
And so we're both struggling. I think my sun exposure is a little higher than Eric's, so I'm having some success, but of course it's
Yeah,
also my
I'm on a northern.
full-time
Yeah,
job.
yeah.
So
I'm on a northern facing slope, so we had a lot of the smoke from the wildfires came right over us. And being on a northern facing slope, I already get limited sunlight, and with the smoke, and then we also had a lot of rain. I just lacked sunlight this for just about the whole month of July.
Oof. That's rough.
yeah. And I'm on an eastern slope, so while I suffered from the smoke and wildfires, I also saw significant damage from the catastrophic flooding here in Vermont. Well, I didn't flood as much as others, but just a absolute deluge of rain that stunted everything that I'm growing.
So
It's been a particularly hard growing season, especially, just everywhere because it's been super dry and then it's been super rainy and
Yep.
super hot.
Oh, and then we can't forget we started with a really bad cold snap.
Mm,
Correct. Yeah.
mm.
yes, that frost was amazing.
So obviously, was it you said when did the podcast start for you guys? Was it around earlier this year?
June,
June.
Yeah, I
beginning
think
of
it was.
June. Is that accurate? I think.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, beginning mid-June.
Nice, amazing. So I'm assuming as well because obviously, as you've kind of been doing this podcast, your own podcast, you're sort of understanding as well, like probably paying even more attention to things that are going on in the world, especially in regards to climate change. Is there things that like are really jumping out to you lately where you're seeing like the alarm bells are going off even louder for you now?
Oh, well, this is Eric's town here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, the alarm bells are everywhere. The as the scientists are saying, the all the alerts for the world are currently flashing bright red at us and screaming. We have extreme temperatures, extreme rain, uh, ocean temperatures at unprecedentedly high.
ocean
No,
currents are
ocean
changing.
currents changing. The jet stream is completely jacked up right now.
And Lily, you told me the other day about the UN said that it's no longer global warming. It's
Yes.
it's global boiling.
Yes, it's global boiling. I totally forgot. I told you. I was
Yeah,
like, we're boiling apparently now.
yeah.
Yay!
I mean,
That
I see it outside my front door every day at this point. I'm not happy about it. I am making the adjustments to it, as any intelligent person would be doing. But it's terrifying to
Hmm.
to to rely on growing your own food right now.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. So I guess another good question is for people who are sort of interested in taking those first steps to joining your sort of like way of living. How can people take those first steps?
Well, I know in England there are certain programs for like lots and sort of community gardens. Am I wrong on that?
Yeah, we get them certainly a little bit further out than London, but certainly
Right,
certainly
but
around.
in your country overall though,
Yeah, yeah,
and that's something that's kind of the first step I would encourage most people is start looking to your community. Something in a town as small as mine, which might sound large to some of Europe, but um, 688 people. The community is the driving force here, and a community garden, even using apps like Meetup to go along with people who are foraging and learn about foraging from experts. It's These are the ways that you can sort of take the wind out of the sails of capitalism and go get your own mushrooms. Don't get them wrapped in plastic, and do the good work.
Lily, is there sort of what sort of things would you suggest to people out there that are kind of looking, yeah, like looking to maybe move to be more sustainable?
I really think just education is one of the biggest things I'd say is educate yourself on what is happening in the world. And that's kind of what we all kind of collectively believe in, and why we started our podcast is really educating people on climate change, on what, growing a food source can be like. If you want to get into homesteading from someone who lives in New York City, I would say um, there are community gardens. You can, if you're able to have window boxes, really just trying to minimize your carbon footprint is a really big one. Like taking public transportation, walking, um, biking. I don't bike in New York City. I do not recommend it, but if you do, wear a helmet. Um, but things like that. And um, there are compost um, communities, I'll call them, and you can join compost. I feel like composting is kind of was my foot in the door to like sustainability. I was like, why are we wasting all of this beautiful stuff that I cannot consume? And so composting was kind of where I started, and then kind of educating myself with it, just talking to like Lucas and Eric. Yeah, so really education. That's my biggest thing is education.
Don't live in a box.
True.
I think it's one of the hardest things to do as well, because obviously there is so much information out there, and it's so easy for people to think to basically like stick their head in the sand and not want to learn, not want to listen to the sort of warning signs about it all.
It's true. Like people want to just kind of ignore the inevitable and live in a kind of bubble and a stasis, but
Blissful
it's
ignorance.
yes, thank you,
Yes.
Eric. Um, and we kind of just ignore everything around us. And I think that is going to be more harmful. And it is more harmful. We're currently seeing the ramifications of, people sticking their head in the sand.
Yeah, like Eric said, like the alarms are going off.
Yep. And we've been warned, we've been getting warned since the 50s and the 60s of this coming. They really started screaming at us in the 80s, but nobody listened. And they, because we want to keep the status quo, keep the economy running. We can't change things because it's too disruptive for the economy, and it would just disrupt business too much to do the change that it's necessary to stop what's going on.
I think that's such a good point, and it really, as part of my podcast, obviously we talk a lot about the sort of like issues of things like capitalism and how that affects environments. And obviously we're not discussing films in current time due to the strike, but was wondering, do you guys think like down the line, if for example another planet was to be found that could sustain human life, what's the likelihood, that we just give up on trying to solve this climate crisis and just move shop basically over because we're
I mean,
too lazy to
we
solve our
are
own problems?
we're a capitalistic society. Capitalism's going to do what capitalism's going to do.
And what's capitalism going to do, Eric?
It's going to go to that planet. It's going to say, we are done with this planet. We don't have enough resources here. So we're going to go take resources from over there and live there and make that planet ours, take all their resources, drain that one, and then move on because we are going to
So,
become parasites.
right, because imperialism is apparently in our DNA, right? Like we're we're going to go directly to the next source of nutrients, and nutrients for humans is wealth. So unfortunately, so by separating ourselves from capitalism and only engaging in commerce, as opposed to capitalism, which is an oppressive state, you can somebody stop me from sounding like the old hippie on the show, but can you can escape the doom loop.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, even if it's as simple as like being in the city, find a farmer's market that you can go to. Just talk to the farmers there. Just and
And
buy the food from
so
them.
here's the thing, as to add to Eric's point about going to farmers market, it's really not hard to be sustainable. It's really just taking that initial step into sustainability and just awareness. And I think especially in a larger city, it is fruitful. Like, we have so many community gardens, we have so many farmers markets, and just we live in a society that is kind of lazy, and they would rather just go down to the grocery store and pick out a package and deal with that. Um, and I think that's a huge problem. Um, I do actually want to touch on the film industry just for like a brief second,
Yeah, of
because we're
course.
talking about sustainability, because they're one of the worst. Not gonna lie, their carbon footprint is astronomical. And if we just like look at just I want to say Lord of the Rings for some reason, and I don't know why that like keeps coming into my brain, but like they were in New Zealand. They had to fly everybody to New Zealand. They had to feed everybody. They had to clothe everybody. The amount of just waste and everything just stacks up and up and up. And just imagine how many films are doing this continuously with the flights and the driving, and it's astronomical. Anyways, film industry can do better. Do better.
The carbon footprint.
Do you want numbers on that? Is that what you're
I
asking?
I don't.
Okay.
I'll feel really bad about watching movies.
I
It's
know. Like,
it's
don't
insane,
watch
I bet.
movies.
Because and you got to think as well, obviously, this is only based, you think of the movies that, for example, there's like films like the Batgirl film, which got just cancelled before it even came out. That movie just all gone to waste entirely. Not only the fact that they didn't bother to make the film and spent hundreds of millions of dollars on it, they also used all those resources which could have been used for much better things.
Like
Correct.
Brendan Fraser.
Well, yeah, just give all the money just to him. It's fine.
Yeah, no, it's so I do have a number, and I just want to let this sink in. So the average film produces about 2,800 tons of carbon, and it would take around 3,700 acres of forest to absorb the amount that is generated.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, deep
And
breath.
that's one film.
Yeah, Lily, I'd be curious right now how much the carbon footprint's reduced right now without the actors jetting around, touring for their movies, going from set to set, and all of that stuff.
5%.
Yeah,
That's a super interesting point actually about the fact that, yeah, because there's no press going on, there's none of these, massive tours across Europe, across the Americas to try and like promote these films, which are already going to make the money as it is. But you're spending all this extra money on this and adding extra pollution into the atmosphere.
Yeah, but so as a union member, because I work in technical theater, um, I support the Actors Guild or the Writers Guild 100%. Like, they deserve to be paid fairly and equally, and I support their mission. I don't support I really would just love the film industry just to become a little more sustainable. And I was reading a lot of articles about that, and just everything that they're trying to do, less food waste, reusing of costumes, like kind of upcycling old costumes and stuff like that. So that is my 2 cents.
No, that's really interesting to hear about, because it's probably an aspect that a lot of people don't think about for the film industry, and the fact that, yeah, it's something that can be actively done by all studios to help not save everyone money in theory, and also just do better for the world.
Exactly. And larger, like just entertainment in general, just the whole entertainment industry is just very wasteful.
Yeah,
Coming from someone who is actively working in the entertainment industry.
this is how it goes for us. We work in an industry that we know there's a lot of problems, but we try and fight the good fight.
Correct.
So I guess, yeah, a question that I'm gonna put to you all is, how do we stay positive in times like this with the warning signs going off? Yeah, what keeps us going and trying to be the people we are?
I am
Um,
not the person to ask that question.
Yeah, I don't think I'm the one. I've honestly been, I mean, I've been teetering with the idea of saying, "Oh, we're all doomed. Screw it. I'm gonna go out with a boom and have fun with the last end stage capitalism."
I think I'm more the positive Patty in this scenario. Um, I think really for me, what helps me is seeing large shifts. Like I recently came back from Papua New Guinea, where I got to see a lot of land that had been conserved, and on the flip side, I did see a lot of palm oil trees, but I digress. Seeing that land that is just being preserved to the native people and no one's allowed on it. And it was just so beautiful to see that there are people taking steps in the right direction. And so small things like that help me. And I think if I let the overabundance of information and scary thoughts win, I know I'll go into that deep doom and gloom thing that Eric was talking about. So I think I'm just a naturally positive person, and I tend to try and look for the best. And like I was saying, I was reading about how the film industry has changed some things. So I look at both sides, I'm like, okay, they're making small improvements, but how can we make it vaster and bigger? And um, so positive, yes and no.
Well, and I think I'm somebody who's really open about my depression and my anxiety issues, and sort of, not everybody can do what I did and leave the workforce and completely dedicate themselves. But and that's not the entirety of what gives me hope. It's actually, you know, giving my strawberry plants to Eric and having Lily up here and making her, check out a carrot that's not quite done and frankly kind of gross. But there is something about touching the earth and being a part of it that if you could even spend 1% of your life doing that, you're just going to crave it more and more like a drug.
Yeah, and I may have spoken about the doom and gloom of it, but like I have kids, and teaching them to grow food and be sustainable and be aware of the environment and what's going on and how we can make a difference is kind of my way of staying positive or keeping somewhat of a not so bleak outlook.
Yeah, I honestly, it's so great to hear that, because it is a tough world, and it's really easy. I remember during COVID times as well, like the doom scrolling effect of, every time you're scrolling through, it's just worse and worse news, and being able to experience those little moments just of seeing things that feel like, yeah, something's being done, something is happening, and being a part of the earth in a positive way feels good.
It really does. It really does. And I again, I always sound like the loon, but get out and touch the earth, like hug a fucking tree. Oh, sorry, I don't know what the language barrier is on your show. All right, but generically hug a tree. Get out
Yeah.
there and
Go
find a
touch
group of
grass.
people. Yeah, go touch
Reconnect with
grass.
nature. Yeah, and I agree with that. And I think that more people need to do that. And coming as someone who is living in New York City and is always longing to get out of New York City, every weekend I am out of New York City, usually in the woods, helping
If
someone
if
garden.
Lily comes to my home, I have to hide the
Yeah,
keys to the tractor. She
it's
just
true.
wants to pretend she's a farmer.
Always. It's always true, but like I am a nature girl living in the middle of New York City, and it's not great, but like going to Central Park and finding a place to just forget that you're in the middle of the city is really helpful. But also getting out and reconnecting with nature and getting my hands in the dirt is one of my favorite activities.
Yeah, I think it's such a simple thing just to reconnect in that way, and to be able to unplug as well from it all. Because I think, yeah, it's part of being part of that sort of capitalist system where you just feel like you're constantly plugged in, whether that's being on your phone a lot or having to stay alert to work or anything. And yeah, being able to go back to nature feels good.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's the
I would
best.
agree.
So I think that's a great message for anyone listening to this one is turn off, well, finish the episode first, and then uh, go out and touch the grass, hug a tree, all the good stuff. Um,
100%.
so I want to ask you all: have you all got like a final message you'd like to give to my listeners who perhaps are learning about climate change, homesteading, sustainability for the first time? What would you like to say to them to encourage them?
Listen to our
Oh.
podcast.
Yes, I thought I was a shameless self-promoter. Thank you, Lily.
You're welcome. No, I think that is a great way to start. If you're kind of a little weary, we're fun individuals. We kind of we talk about the doom and gloom, but we also talk like this is what we're doing in to help our homestead, and so I think it puts a positive spin after we give you the doom and gloom. So that's one way. I also think reaching, if you're in a city, community gardens, see if there's a composting community thing. I don't know. It's just a bin and you throw your
Exchange.
compost. Thank you.
Exchange, yeah.
I was like, it is a bin and I just throw the compost in, so I don't know what it's called. Um, really just like reducing your general waste and packaged foods.
Yeah, shorten your supply chain for what you're buying.
Yeah, that's huge. Reduce your carbon footprint by, you know, don't buy as much. Take it
Yeah.
back.
Yeah,
Take
go
it
buy at the
back.
farmer's market. Find a local butcher that buys from a farm that's in the country.
Yeah, absolutely agree with both of them on every point.
Uh, and I would highly recommend everyone please go listen to Broken Shovel podcast. It is fantastic. I feel like I'm learning a lot because it's something I want to definitely get more involved in, and yeah, it's fascinating to hear people who are already involved in it and as an outsider listening in.
Well, and we are very interested in listening to the people that are listening too. We want to
Hmm.
say that very clearly. I'm probably socially media the most accessible, but Lily, what's the email for the show?
It is Broken Shovel Podcast 802 at gmail.com.
Anybody wants to talk about anything, we are so open to it.
Correct.
Yes, and Lucas is very much on TikTok and active on TikTok.
Hmm.
Uh,
Broken Shovel Farm.
And he's a great education source
He really
as
is. Like,
well.
it's, yes, his videos on what he's doing in his garden and whatnot, and his mushroom adventures and whatnot are just really fun to watch.
Thank you to you both.
I'll make sure that we have a link to that in the description as well. So, yeah, please, everyone check out that. Thank you all for listening to the podcast. And I'd like to thank my guests, Lucas, Lily, and Eric, for joining me. It's been a pleasure having you all on. And yes, please, everyone, check out Broken Shovel Podcast. And we will be back again soon for another episode later on, where who knows what we'll be talking about, because there'll probably still be a writer and actor strike on.
Support your unions, and thank you to you too, Shaun.
And yes, support the unions. Get that deal done. Yeah, speak to you all again soon. Goodbye. Thank you for listening. This episode is dedicated to our patrons Eric Scrock, Patrick Regal, and Lauren King. To become a patron, visit www.patreon.com/avatarpod.